Hi everyone, welcome to the next lecture of Let's Talk UPSC. So, herein, basically, what we will be studying here is the topic that is fact, value, and objectivity. Fact, value, and objectivity. So, this is an important part of the sociology syllabus because there have been direct questions asked from this topic, especially as to what is objectivity and whether sociology is a value free science or not, right? Value free science. So there were questions like which asked whether sociology is a value free science or whether objectivity can be 100% achieved in sociology. In the previous class, we've seen about positivism, right? We have seen positivism. We've also seen non positivism, right? So in positivism, we have basically argued, or the positivists basically have argued, that sociology is nothing but it's also a science. In fact, Auguste Comte even went to the lengths of framing sociology as the queen science, right? So we've seen all this in the previous class, and we've seen non-positivism, the start of which was by Weber, in which he basically brings in the social action theory, right? And he says that the actions basically are humanly influenced, right? They are humanly influenced, and the intended meaning will be what the actor in this place intends that action to be, right? So that is how we have seen about positivism and non-positivism. How is it related to objectivity is something that we will see in today's class, right? So herein, let us basically understand certain concepts, right? So firstly, what exactly is objectivity, right? So that is the first concept that we should be doing, right? So but since the syllabus even before objectivity talks about facts and values, so let us just understand in general terms as to what are these facts and values, right? So facts basically are nothing but universal truths, right? They are universal truths. That is, even for me or even for you or for any other person in the world, these truths remain the same. The facts remain the same. A very famous example is that the sun rises in the east. Right. So this is a fact, and it is true for me and for any other person watching this video right now. Right. So this is a universal fact. Right. Whereas values are something that change. Okay, that change person to person depending on the beliefs, right? The beliefs, the morals, the opinions, the viewpoints that a person has, right? So as simple as that. So facts are nothing but something which are universally truth. For me, for you, for any person in the world, it is true, right? Values keep changing for every person. For example, if we take a value, you can take a value like having non-veg, right? Example, having non-vegetarian food. Having non-vegetarian food, for some people, we think that it is okay to have it and we enjoy the food, right? We enjoy the meal. Whereas for others, we feel that it is not, you know, good to have non-vegetarian food. And there is also a scientific explanation whether, you know, non-veg is good or not, right? That is based on facts again, right? So science gives you something called the facts. Science gives you the facts, and through which you reach to a certain conclusions. For example, science might tell you that non-vegetarian food is something that has a lot of protein in it, especially the egg, the chicken, etc. They have a lot of protein in it. Whereas on the other hand, science also tells you that, because of people having or consuming a lot of non-vegetarian food, what is happening is that the climate is getting spoiled, right? The climate is getting changed. A lot of climate change is happening due to non-vegetarian food. And why, what is the reason for this? The reason is that when you're killing animals, a lot of, carbon footprint is released into the environment, right? So for that very reason, they say that, non-vegetarian food is not good. But on the other hand, science also recommends proteins as a building block of the body, right? It builds your muscles and it gives you a lot of good things in your body. For that, vegetarian food is what science tells. So science basically doesn't have values. It just gives you the facts. It tells you, it has proteins, it has, but it also does negative to the climate. So you decide. It leaves it upon you to decide, right? But values are basically based on these perceptions, the beliefs that you have, the morals that you have, the opinions that you have, and the viewpoints that you have. So that is how facts and values differ from each other, right? So that is basically a very justful or very very brief introduction of what facts and values mean, right? So now we'll be looking into objectivity, the third term which is given, that is the objectivity, right? So what is this objectivity? The word itself says a lot. It has this word called object. Okay, what exactly does this object mean? Object means that before I go into this, let me just bring out this example here. Whenever we used to study English subject for the first time in our schools or colleges or wherever that is, and for people who don't speak English, I will give you another example. But yeah, for just an example's sake here, object versus subject, right? So when we study English, we study passive voice, active voice, right? Passive voice, active voice, everything we study, right? And in that we use this dichotomy of object versus subject. We tell that object is something which is, there. It will be the same for every person, whereas subject keeps changing depending upon the preferences of the person or the way the person is. Like if it's a girl, we use he. If it's a boy, we use she. But the object always remains the same. The object is basically a thing, a lifeless thing which always is referred to as it, except for few things, like the earth is referred to as she. We call our earth as the mother earth, we call India as mother India. So that's another thing, but here just to explain the dichotomy, you can even ignore this example if you haven't understood. But what I meant to say by this objectivity is that, object is something which is true for everyone, right? There are no values involved in object, right? So basically what do you mean by no values involved is that for any person x, the thing will remain the same, right? So objectivity also comes in the definition of object only. And objectivity, one famous scholar by the name Robert, I don't know how to spell this, but Robert Bierstedt, I guess that is how it is spelled, and I'm sorry if it's not that way. So he basically says that objectivity means that the conclusions of the inquiry are independent of the researcher's race, caste, religion, nationality, and moral preferences and individual predispositions of the investigator. Right. So here basically objectivity is something that Robert Bierstedt defines and tells that, let us say Alex is the one who is the sociologist here, like sociologist here, and he's going to conduct a survey, right? And so Alex might be a Christian, right? And he might be a little fair color, that is, white. He might be a white. Not going into the racism debate, but just to give the clarity here again. And he might be belonging to a particular caste, some X caste, right? And he might be belonging to a particular country, let's say India. Okay, all this is example, please don't take it to the heart, or you know just because I mentioned white, please don't take it into that dichotomy again. But when we say that Alex belongs to all of this, but when he is conducting a sociological research, right, Alex is not any of this, right? He forgets that he's any of this, right? Alex becomes a sociologist, that's it. And that is how objectivity comes to Alex, right? When he, irrespective of being a Christian or white or ex-caste and India, he removes all of these prejudices, and he basically focuses on what the research is about, right? So for example, if it is about marriages in India, his research topic is marriages in India versus marriages in USA, right? So see, Alex is a Christian, and Christians have different customs of marriage. They have different, ways in which marriage is done. But he should forget all this. He should forget all this when he is, studying marriages in India and marriages in USA. And he belongs to India, so he shouldn't have any predisposition that, India is better than USA. Okay, he might, individually feel that his country is better than any other country in the world, but when he's conducting the research, this when he's doing this research item here, he should basically forget that he's an Indian. So that is what objectivity basically says. It basically says that, the conclusion of an inquiry, okay, whatever the result he gets out of this, the conclusion of an inquiry should be independent of the caste, race, sex, or, nationality, or the moral predisposition of a person, right? So whatever Robert Bierstadt basically gives that beautiful definition of what is objectivity here, right? So I hope that is clear, right? So till now, what we have basically done till here is that we have done um, fact, we have done what is objectivity, we have done what is value. And the next part what we'll be doing is we'll be doing about the different sociological opinions about this fact, value, and objectivity. So how are they different to each other and how are they similar to each other? So that is what we'll be basically doing here, right? Just a minute, I think there's something wrong here. Okay. Okay, let us just go ahead. So herein, when we have to compare, like, the different viewpoints of different scholars, so firstly let us take the example of what the positivists mean by, objectivity, right? So what the positivists mean by objectivity, so for positivists, basically sociology is a science that we've already done in the previous class. If anyone has not attended the previous class, you can go back and watch the previous lecture between the differences between positivism and non-positivism and the different schools of thought, because you get a background as to what exactly I'm speaking about here, right? So sociology is a science for positivists. That means it is objective, right? Because science is objective. Have you seen the example of the objectivity example that I previously mentioned about how non-vegetarian food, there are two different opinions of science, and science leaves it to you whether to decide you want to be a non-vegetarian or a non-vegetarian. It doesn't basically say you that, you do not have to be one or you have to be one. It just gives you the facts. It just gives you whatever there is there in the page, and then you have to make a decision on your own, right? So that is what positivist view, right? And the second is the non-positivist. Basically, the non-positivists, like Weber, the phenomenologists, the phenomenologists, and the ethnomethodologists, and the ethnomethodologists. Basically, these people view non sociology as a non-positivist discipline, and basically they say that sociology is not a science. There's a lot of human interpretation involved in sociology, and it is not a science according to these non-positivists, right? So Weber, for basically, he brings out his very famous theory called the social action theory. Social action theory, in which he basically states as to how human emotions or human interpretations of a particular situation also becomes very important in understanding what exactly is the social action of that particular human, right? So next class, when we do all these theories related to people, the philosophers, etc., and the sociologists like Durkheim, Marx, Weber, will be dealing more about this theory. But basically, what the action social action theory means is that, human actions have a lot of value individually also, right? It is not just the surrounding or the society which brings in the value, but it is the intention of the human also that involves here, right? So that is what non-positivist ideology is basically about, right? So next, okay, so next what we are going to understand here is we are going to understand a different perspective, right? A different perspective called the critical researcher's perspective, right? Critical researcher's perspective on objectivity. So we did positivism, we did non-positivism, or we'll do about the critical researchers. Okay, who are these critical researchers? One very well-known example of critical researchers are the feminists. Okay, the feminists basically, they view sociology to be something that should study the women and should give some sort of emancipation or some sort of solutions to the problems that women face, right? So basically, if you see, non-positivists versus positivists, when we did this debate, we have seen that how the positivists basically talked about, especially when you see, Karl Marx, he did study the economy, right? He did study the economy. He also studied the division of labor. He did division of labor. Even Weber studied division of labor. But all of these never brought in the aspect of feminism, right? They never brought in the aspect of women. Okay. And the non-positivists come in and say that, this is a criticism of positivism, that they say that, people have ignored certain aspects, like women are ignored because most of the sociologists were of the early sociology were all male, right? So they purposely ignored women. So that is what non-positivists argue, and that is what they say, that, sociology is not objective, because when you're choosing to, basically study the economy or the division of labor, you are purposely ignoring the women contribution to it. So, okay, so your value that you are a male, your patriarchal ideas that you are a male comes in here, right? So that is where objectivity is not at all shown in sociology, is what the non-positivists argue, right? So critical researchers are somewhat incoherent with that thought, but they say that sociology should not be a dumb discipline. Okay, it has to do something for the society as well. It shouldn't just bring out the facts, but it also has to bring out values, and it also has to bring out the good ones. Okay, and they say that the plight of women should be basically highlighted. The plight of women should be basically told to the entire world, and that is what they argue, right? Yeah. So these critical researchers, like one of the very famous example of a critical researcher who is also a feminist is Kimberly Crenshaw, right? Kimberly Crenshaw. So they basically argue that, sociological researchers should exhibit value commitment. They have to be showing certain values that do good to the society as a whole, right? And on the other hand, you have a very interesting personality who is nothing but Alvin Gardner, right? And Alvin Gardner, in his book, he writes this very beautiful book called Anti-Minotaur, the myth of value-free sociology. And here he writes that facts and values in sociology cannot be separated. Okay, values and facts cannot be separated in sociological research, and that sociologists, okay, no matter who or no matter how great a sociologist they are, they cannot escape from the values that they have in their mind, right? Even today, even if we, place ourselves as a sociologist and we try to be like 100% objective, can we be that, is a question that you people also have to ask yourself. And you people also have to ask yourself as to which position or which position or perspective of sociology do you prefer. Do you prefer the positivist view? Do you prefer the um, non-positivist view? Or do you prefer the critical researchers view, or Alvin Gardner's view, who says that facts and values are very very inherently combined and they cannot be separated in sociology, right? So that is food for thought for you people, and that completes the class for today. And in the next class we'll be starting the most exciting, or the most interesting part, that is the sociological thinkers. We'll be starting with Emile Durkheim, because I just want to follow a particular sequence of going things. Emile Durkheim is a functionalist, so we'll start with functionalism also when we deal with Durkheim, and then we'll do the others, right? Then we'll do Talcott Parsons, Merton, Karl Marx, Weber, and Mill. So this will be the sequence, but we'll be doing according to the syllabus that is given in the UPSC paper, right? So that's all for today, and have a nice day, and please like and subscribe if you like the videos. Thank you. Bye.